Hope's journey is one of resilience and transformation. Sam Miller, a solitary man haunted by past losses, rescues Buddy, a puppy abandoned under a bridge. This act of compassion sets him on a path of healing. Over time, Sam saves Shadow, another neglected dog, and eventually rescues Hope, a dog traumatized by her past in a dogfighting ring. Hope's courage inspires Sam to confront challenges, including a dangerous encounter with the criminal network responsible for her suffering. Together, they overcome adversity, with Hope proving herself as not just a survivor but a hero. Her story touches lives far beyond the cabin, becoming a symbol of second chances and the power of compassion. Sam and Hope's journey culminates in the creation of Hope's Haven, a rescue center where animals can find healing and love, just as Hope did. What do you think of Hope's story? Were you inspired by her resilience and the bond she shared with Sam? Let us know where you're watching from and share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe to DG Story for more heartwarming tales of courage and compassion. Like, share, and hit the notification bell so you never miss an episode. Let's spread hope together. The rain poured heavily on the small town of Maplewood, its streets slick and shiny under the dim glow of streetlights. Sam Miller gripped the steering wheel of his old pickup truck as it rumbled down the winding country road. The isolation of the forested area suited him. After years in the military and a string of personal losses, solitude had become his refuge. As he neared the wooden bridge that spanned the creek near his cabin, a faint sound cut through the steady patter of rain. Sam slowed the truck. Frowning as he rolled down the window, the sound grew clearer, a soft, pitiful whimper. "What now?" he muttered, shifting the truck into park. Grabbing his flashlight, Sam stepped into the rain, the cold immediately seeping through his jacket. He followed the sound to the underside of the bridge, where a small, shivering figure huddled against the stone support. It was a puppy, his fur matted with mud and blood, one leg twisted at an unnatural angle. The sight stopped Sam in his tracks. Memories of another dog, long ago, flashed through his mind, a loss that still stung deeply. "You're just gonna keep walking," he told himself, turning away, but the puppy's whimper grew louder, a desperate plea that tugged at something buried deep in Sam's chest. He sighed heavily, running a hand through his rain-soaked hair. "Damn it!" Sam carefully scooped the puppy into his arms, feeling its frail body tremble. "Hang in there, Buddy," he murmured as he carried it back to the truck. The drive to his cabin was quiet, save for the occasional whine from the pup. Sam glanced at it periodically, noting the way its eyes, large and round, seemed to silently plead for help. When they arrived, Sam laid the puppy on an old blanket in the corner of his small living room. He rummaged through his cabinets, eventually finding a basic first aid kit. "This is about as good as it gets," he said, kneeling beside the pup. He cleaned its wounds with shaky hands, his lack of experience with animals evident. "Don't look at me like that," he added when the puppy whimpered. By the time he finished, the rain had eased into a soft drizzle. The puppy was still weak but breathing steadily. Sam sat back with a sigh, staring at the small creature. "You're not staying," he muttered. "I'll take you to the shelter tomorrow." That night, Sam couldn't sleep. Each time he closed his eyes, he thought about the puppy, huddled in the rain, waiting for help that might not have come. He thought about his own past, the guilt he carried for not being able to save everyone he cared about. Around midnight, he got up and went to check on the pup. It looked up at him with wide, trusting eyes, its tail giving the faintest wag. "You're a fighter." "Ha!" Sam said softly, sitting beside it. He scratched its ears gently, something he hadn't done for a dog in years. The puppy licked his hand, and for the first time in a long while, Sam felt a flicker of warmth pierce through the cold shell he had built around himself. The next morning, Sam found himself making breakfast not just for himself but for the puppy too. He poured a small bowl of oatmeal and added a few scraps of chicken, setting it down on the floor. "Here you go, Buddy," he said, the name slipping out naturally. The puppy wagged its tail, hobbling over to eat. Sam watched, a faint smile tugging at the corners of his lips. "You're not so bad," he admitted. As the days passed, Sam's resolve to take Buddy to the shelter waned. The pup's resilience and trust began to chip away at his guarded nature. For the first time in years, Sam found himself laughing at Buddy's clumsy attempts to chase a ball, at the way he'd bark at his own reflection in the window. Buddy's presence brought a quiet but profound change to Sam's life. He found himself spending more time outdoors, walking through the woods with the pup by his side. He even began reconnecting with the town, picking up supplies and asking for advice on how to care for a growing dog. But as much as Buddy had healed part of Sam's heart, the shadows of his past lingered. He couldn't shake the feeling that their peaceful days together might not last. Unbeknownst to him, Buddy was just the beginning of a journey that would test his strength, his courage, and his capacity to love again. The days turned into weeks, and Buddy became an inseparable part of Sam's life. His cabin, once quiet and somber, was now filled with the soft pitter-patter of paws and the occasional bark. For Sam, Buddy was more than just a companion. He was a reminder that even in solitude, there could be warmth. One sunny afternoon, Sam decided to explore the woods near his property. Buddy, now healthier and more energetic, bounded ahead, his nose to the ground. Sam followed at a leisurely pace, enjoying the crisp air and the sight of Buddy's wagging tail. "Don't go too far," Sam called out, chuckling as Buddy barked in response. As they wandered deeper into the forest, Buddy stopped suddenly. His ears perked up. He sniffed the air and let out a low whine, glancing back at Sam as if to say, "Follow me." "What is it, boy?" Sam asked, quickening his pace. Buddy led him to a small clearing where a large, black dog lay motionless. Its ribs were visible beneath its matted fur, and its eyes barely opened as Sam approached. "Hey there, Buddy," Sam said softly, kneeling beside the dog. "What happened to you?" The dog flinched at his touch but didn't have the strength to move away. Buddy sat beside it, licking its face gently as if to comfort it. Sam's heart ached at the sight. "Looks like we've got another guest," he muttered, carefully lifting the dog into his arms. Back at the cabin, Sam cleaned the dog's wounds and offered it water and food. The dog, which he decided to name Shadow, ate hesitantly but gratefully. Buddy watched intently, his tail wagging as if he understood that Shadow needed care. Over the next few days, Shadow began to regain strength, though still wary of Sam. The dog seemed to trust Buddy completely, often following him around the cabin and yard. "You're good at this," Sam said to Buddy one evening, watching as the two dogs rested together by the fireplace. "Maybe you should be the one running this place." For Sam, Shadow's arrival was both a challenge and a revelation. Caring for two dogs required more effort, but it also brought him a sense of purpose he hadn't felt in years. One day, while brushing Shadow's fur, Sam noticed a scar around the dog's neck, a mark left by a collar that had been too tight for too long. His jaw tightened as he realized Shadow had likely been abandoned or mistreated. "You've been through a lot, haven't you?" Sam murmured, his voice filled with a mix of anger and sadness. Shadow looked up at him with tired eyes, and in that moment, Sam felt an unspoken connection. That night, as Sam sat on the porch with Buddy and Shadow by his side, he couldn't help but reflect on how much his life had changed. The quiet evenings he once cherished now felt fuller, richer, but as much as he wanted to believe this peace could last, a nagging feeling told him it wouldn't. The next week, Sam took Buddy and Shadow into town for supplies. It was rare for him to venture out, but with two dogs to care for, his trips had become more frequent. At the general store, he noticed a commotion outside. A crowd had gathered near a pickup truck, and Sam's curiosity got the better of him. "What's going on?" he asked the store clerk. "Some guy's trying to sell a fighting dog," the clerk replied, shaking his head. "It's disgusting." Sam's chest tightened. "Fighting dogs?" He stepped outside, Buddy and Shadow following close behind. At the center of the crowd was a man holding a large, brindle-colored dog on a heavy chain. The dog, clearly frightened, cowered against the truck as the man barked orders at it. "She's a fighter," the man said loudly, his grin cruel. "Strong as they come. Anyone want her?" Sam felt a surge of anger. How could someone treat a dog this way? He stepped forward, his voice firm. "I'll take her." The man sneered. "Got cash?" Sam reached into his pocket and pulled out enough bills to make the man reconsider his attitude. "Let her go," he demanded. Reluctantly, the man handed over the chain. The dog, now trembling, looked up at Sam with wide, fearful eyes. "You're safe now," Sam said gently, kneeling beside her. He unclipped the heavy chain and replaced it with a soft leash he had brought for Buddy. "Come on, girl. Let's get you out of here." The ride back to the cabin was quiet. Shadow and Buddy sat in the back seat, while the new dog, whom Sam decided to name Hope, lay curled up on the floor of the truck. When they arrived, Sam guided Hope into the cabin. She hesitated at the door, her body tense. "It's okay," Sam said softly. "This is your home now." Buddy and Shadow approached her slowly, their calm demeanor helping to ease her nerves. After a few moments, Hope stepped inside, her movements tentative but deliberate. Sam watched as she explored the space, her tail wagging faintly for the first time. "You've been through hell," he said quietly, "but you're safe now." Hope's arrival marked the beginning of a new chapter for Sam. With 3 dogs under his care, his once solitary life had transformed into something unexpected and fulfilling. But Hope's story was far from over. The scars she carried hinted at a past that would soon come back to haunt them all. The days following Hope's arrival were challenging for both Sam and the 3 dogs. While Shadow and Buddy quickly adjusted to having a new companion, Hope remained distant. She flinched at sudden movements, growled softly if anyone came too close, and often hid under the porch when she felt overwhelmed. Sam, though patient, couldn't help but feel a pang of frustration. "You're safe here," he said one afternoon, kneeling by the porch where Hope had retreated. "No one's going to hurt you." Buddy trotted over and nudged Hope gently, his tail wagging in encouragement. Shadow followed, sitting protectively nearby. Together, they seemed to coax Hope out from her hiding spot, though her steps were hesitant. Sam watched the interaction, his frustration melting into admiration. "You two are better at this than I am," he muttered with a faint smile. Over the next few weeks, Hope began to show signs of improvement. She ate regularly, responded to Buddy and Shadow's playful invitations, and even ventured inside the cabin without hesitation. One evening, as Sam sat by the fire reading, Hope approached him cautiously. She stopped a few feet away, her ears perked as if weighing a decision. "It's okay," Sam said softly, setting his book aside. Hope took another step forward, then another, until she was close enough to sniff his outstretched hand. Finally, she lowered herself to the floor beside him, her body relaxed for the first time. Sam let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. "Good girl," he murmured, reaching out to scratch behind her ears. For Sam, the moment felt like a breakthrough not just for Hope, but for himself. He hadn't realized how much he needed these connections, how much he had missed feeling like he was part of something bigger than himself. As Hope settled into her new life, Sam began noticing things that hinted at her past. One day, while walking the dogs through town, they passed a construction site where loud machinery was running. Hope froze, her tail tucking between her legs as she crouched low to the ground. Her body trembled, and she let out a soft whine. "It's okay, Hope," Sam said, kneeling beside her. He stroked her fur gently, trying to calm her. Buddy and Shadow stood protectively on either side of her, their calm presence helping to ease her fear. After a few minutes, Hope regained her composure, though she stayed close to Sam's side for the rest of the walk. Later that evening, Sam sat on the porch, watching the dogs play in the yard. His mind lingered on Hope's reaction. "What happened to you?" he wondered aloud. Sam's question found an unexpected answer a week later when a visitor arrived at his cabin. Sheriff Daniels, a tall, broad-shouldered man with a gruff but kind demeanor, stepped out of his patrol car with a folder in hand. "Morning, Sam," Daniels greeted, tipping his hat. "Heard you've been rescuing a few dogs lately." Sam shrugged, leaning against the porch railing. "Just doing what I can." Daniels nodded, then handed Sam the folder. "Thought you might want to see this. We've been tracking an illegal dog fighting ring operating out of the next county. From what we've gathered, one of the dogs they used matches the description of your brindle girl." Sam's stomach dropped as he opened the folder. Inside were grainy photos of dogs in chains, their bodies battered and scarred. One photo showed a dog that looked eerily similar to Hope, her eyes wide with fear as she crouched in a corner. "That's her," Sam said, his voice tight. Daniels sighed. "I thought so. These guys are bad news, Sam. If they find out you've got one of their dogs." "They won't," Sam interrupted, his tone firm. "I hope you're right," Daniels replied. "But be careful. These people don't take kindly to losing what they consider their property." That night, Sam couldn't shake the sheriff's warning. He watched Hope as she lay by the fire, her body relaxed but her ears twitching at every little sound. "You've been through hell," he said quietly, his chest tightening. "But no one's taking you back there. Not while I'm around." Buddy and Shadow seemed to sense his unease, staying close to Sam and Hope throughout the evening. The following week, Sam's fears were realized. While working in his yard, he noticed a black SUV parked at the edge of the woods. The vehicle lingered for a few minutes before driving off, but the sight left Sam unsettled. Later that evening, he found a note pinned to his porch railing. The message was brief but chilling. "We know you have her. Hand her over, or we'll take her back." Sam's hands clenched around the paper as anger surged through him. "Not a chance," he muttered. He immediately called Sheriff Daniels, who promised to send a patrol car to keep an eye on the area. But even with the added security, Sam couldn't shake the feeling that trouble was coming. As Sam prepared for what lay ahead, he knew one thing for certain. He would do whatever it took to protect Hope, Buddy, and Shadow. They were more than just dogs, they were his family. But the fight was far from over, and Sam would soon find himself facing dangers he never could have anticipated. The days following the note were tense. Sam doubled down on security, locking every door and window each night and keeping the dogs close to him at all times. He even set up motion-detecting lights around the cabin, their sharp beams cutting through the darkness whenever anything moved outside. Buddy and Shadow sensed the change in atmosphere, their behavior more alert and protective. Hope, however, grew anxious. She often paced the cabin, her ears flicking at every creak and rustle. "It's okay, girl," Sam said one evening, kneeling beside her. He scratched behind her ears, his touch gentle and reassuring. "I've got you." Hope pressed her head into his hand, her trust in him evident despite her fear. One night, just as Sam was about to head to bed, the sound of shattering glass echoed through the cabin. He rushed to the kitchen and found a rock lying on the floor, surrounded by shards of the broken window. Attached to the rock was another note. "This is your last warning. Give her up." Sam's jaw clenched as he read the message. He turned to see Buddy and Shadow standing in the doorway, their hackles raised. Hope cowered behind them, her body trembling. "That's it," Sam muttered, grabbing his phone. He called Sheriff Daniels, his voice tight with anger. "They just broke a window. This isn't a game anymore." "I'll send a patrol unit now," Daniels replied. "Hang tight, Sam, and don't do anything reckless." Sam hung up, his gaze hardening as he looked at his dogs. "No one's taking you," he said firmly. "Not on my watch." The next day, Sheriff Daniels arrived at the cabin with a deputy and a local animal rescue worker named Sarah. She was a petite woman with sharp eyes and a calm demeanor, carrying a clipboard filled with information about the dogfighting ring. "We've been trying to shut this operation down for years," Sarah explained, flipping through her notes. "But Malone is smart. He moves his operation every few months, and he has people everywhere." Sam nodded grimly. "And now he wants Hope back." Sarah crouched to pet Hope, her touch gentle and understanding. "She's lucky to have you," she said, looking up at Sam. "But Malone isn't going to stop. We need to get ahead of him." Daniels crossed his arms. "We've got a lead on one of his hideouts. If we can confirm it's active, we might finally have enough to bring him down." Sam's gaze hardened. "What do you need me to do?" Over the next few days, Sam worked closely with Daniels and Sarah to prepare for the operation. They gathered evidence, mapped out the suspected hideout, and coordinated with additional officers to ensure the raid would be successful. Sam also spent extra time with the dogs, reinforcing their bond and ensuring they felt safe. Buddy and Shadow seemed to understand that something big was coming, while Hope grew more confident under Sam's care. One evening, as they sat by the fire, Sam spoke softly to Hope. "You've come so far," he said, his voice filled with pride. "And I promise, no matter what happens, I'll keep you safe." Hope rested her head on his lap, her trust in him unshakable. The night was cold and clear as Sam, Daniels, and Sarah arrived near the suspected hideout. The location was a rundown barn on the outskirts of the neighboring county, hidden among overgrown trees and abandoned vehicles. "This is it," Daniels whispered, signaling for the team to move into position. Sam stayed with Sarah near the perimeter, his heart pounding as he watched the officers move silently through the shadows. Inside the barn, the sound of barking and chains echoed faintly. Sam's stomach churned at the thought of what Hope had endured in a place like this. The officers stormed the barn, their voices loud and commanding as they ordered the occupants to surrender. The scene inside was worse than Sam had imagined. Rows of chained dogs, their bodies scarred and eyes filled with fear. Sam entered cautiously, his breath catching as he took in the sight. Among the dogs was a small pit bull, its ribs visible beneath its skin. It looked up at Sam with the same wide, pleading eyes Hope had when he first found her. "We're getting you out of here," Sam murmured, kneeling to unlock the dog's chain. As the team worked to free the dogs, one of Malone's men tried to make a break for it, shoving past Sarah and heading for the door. Hope, who had been waiting near Sam, let out a sharp bark and darted toward the man. "Hope, no!" Sam shouted, but it was too late. Hope blocked the man's path, her body low and growling fiercely. The man hesitated, clearly unnerved by her sudden bravery. This gave Daniels enough time to tackle him and cuff him. Sam rushed to Hope, his hands trembling as he knelt beside her. "You're insane," he muttered, his voice shaky. "But you're incredible." Hope licked his hand, her tail wagging slightly. By the end of the raid, the team had rescued over a dozen dogs and apprehended several of Malone's men. Hope's courage had played a pivotal role, solidifying her place not just in Sam's heart but as a hero in her own right. But the fight wasn't over. Malone himself had managed to slip away, and Sam knew it was only a matter of time before he came after them again. For now, though, Sam focused on what mattered most, keeping his family, Buddy, Shadow, and Hope safe and together. The aftermath of the raid brought a mix of relief and unease. While the rescued dogs were transported to safe shelters, Sam couldn't shake the feeling that Malone wouldn't let this go. His operation had taken a major hit, and Sam's role in the raid made him a target. Back at the cabin, Sam worked tirelessly to reinforce the property's security. He installed additional locks, boarded up weak windows, and added motion sensor lights around the yard. "You're not getting through here," he muttered, hammering the last nail into place. Buddy and Shadow watched from the porch, their eyes tracking his every move. Hope sat close to the door, her ears swiveling at every sound. "It's okay, girl," Sam said, patting her head. "I've got this." The tension reached its peak 2 nights later. Sam was sitting by the fire, flipping through a book, while the dogs rested nearby. The quiet evening was shattered by the loud crunch of tires on gravel outside. Sam shot to his feet, his heart pounding. He grabbed the rifle he kept near the door and peered through the window. A black SUV idled at the edge of the woods, its headlights cutting through the darkness. Sam's grip tightened on the rifle as two men stepped out of the vehicle. "Stay inside," he whispered to the dogs, closing the door behind him. Sam stepped onto the porch, his rifle at the ready. "Who's there?" he called, his voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through his veins. One of the men stepped forward, his hands raised mockingly. "Relax, old man. We're just here to talk." "Then talk," Sam replied, his finger hovering near the trigger. The man sneered. "You've got something that doesn't belong to you. Malone wants her back." "She's not going anywhere," Sam said firmly. "You tell Malone he can try, but it won't end well for him." The man chuckled. "We'll see about that," he signaled to his companion, and the two men climbed back into the SUV. The vehicle's taillights disappeared into the darkness, leaving Sam standing alone on the porch. As Sam re-entered the cabin, the dogs rushed to meet him. Buddy barked sharply, while Shadow growled low in his throat. Hope pressed against Sam's leg, her body trembling. "It's okay," Sam said, though his voice wavered. "They're gone. For now." He crouched beside Hope, stroking her fur gently. "No one's taking you," he promised. Hope licked his hand, her wide eyes filled with trust despite her fear. The next morning, Sam called Sheriff Daniels to report the encounter. "They know where I am," he said, his voice tight with frustration. "This isn't going to stop." Daniels sighed on the other end of the line. "I figured they'd make a move sooner or later. We're closing in on Malone, but we need more time to build a case. Can you hold out a little longer?" Sam's jaw clenched. "I'll do whatever it takes, but I'm not letting them get near my dogs." "Understood," Daniels replied. "Keep me updated. I'll send a deputy to patrol the area, but be ready for anything." After hanging up, Sam sat at the kitchen table, formulating a plan. If Malone and his men came back, they wouldn't find an easy target. Sam spent the rest of the day preparing. He cleared the yard of anything that could be used as cover, set up additional motion sensors, and reinforced the front door with a heavy steel bar. The dogs followed him as he worked, their presence a constant source of comfort. Shadow stood watch near the tree line, his posture alert, while Buddy helped Sam dig holes for a makeshift barrier. Hope stayed close to Sam, her tail wagging faintly as she watched him hammer stakes into the ground. "You're tougher than you look," Sam said with a small smile. "We'll get through this." As night fell, the cabin was as secure as Sam could make it. He sat on the porch with the dogs, his rifle resting across his lap. The air was still, but Sam knew it was the calm before the storm. "They'll come," he said quietly, "but we'll be ready." The dogs seemed to understand, their eyes steady as they sat beside him, ready to face whatever came next. The next night, the quiet was shattered by the sound of breaking glass. Sam jolted awake, grabbing his rifle from beside the bed. Buddy and Shadow were already at the door, barking furiously. Hope growled low, her body tense as she stayed close to Sam's side. "Stay behind me," Sam said firmly, his voice cutting through the chaos. He moved cautiously toward the living room, his rifle raised. The motion sensor lights outside flickered to life, illuminating the figure of a man crouching by the broken window. "Get out of here," Sam shouted, his voice booming. The intruder froze for a moment before scrambling away into the shadows. Sam's heart pounded as he scanned the yard, but the man had disappeared. As dawn broke, Sam inspected the damage. The window was shattered, and a crude note had been left behind, pinned to the porch railing with a knife. "This is just the beginning." Sam clenched his fists, his anger bubbling beneath the surface. "They're testing me," he muttered, glancing down at Buddy and Shadow. Both dogs stood at attention, their eyes fixed on the tree line. Hope sat near the door, her body trembling but her gaze steady. "You're braver than you know," Sam said softly, kneeling beside her. "And we're not going to let them win." Later that morning, Sheriff Daniels arrived, his expression grim as he surveyed the damage. "They're escalating," Daniels said, running a hand through his hair. "We've got a team working on tracking Malone, but it's slow going. These guys know how to cover their tracks." Sam crossed his arms. "I can't wait for you to catch him. I need to end this now." Daniels frowned. "And how exactly do you plan to do that?" "Draw them out," Sam replied. "Make them come to me on my terms." Daniels raised an eyebrow. "That's risky. You'd be putting yourself and the dogs in danger." "They're already in danger," Sam said firmly. "At least this way, I can control the situation." After a long pause, Daniels nodded reluctantly. "All right, but you're not doing this alone. I'll station deputies nearby, and we'll be ready to move the second Malone shows his face." Sam spent the rest of the day preparing. He left the cabin seemingly unguarded, with only a few dim lights visible from the road. In reality, he and the dogs were hidden in the barn, which Sam had fortified with heavy locks and barricades. Buddy and Shadow stayed near the doors, their ears perked and their bodies alert. Hope lay beside Sam, her breathing steady but her eyes wide with anticipation. "You're ready for this," Sam whispered, scratching behind her ears. "I know you are." The hours passed slowly, the tension in the air growing thicker with each minute. Sam's grip on his rifle tightened as he listened for any sign of movement. Shortly after midnight, the sound of engines broke the silence. Sam peeked through a crack in the barn door, his heart racing as he saw two black SUVs pull into the yard. 5 men stepped out, their flashlights cutting through the darkness. One of them was Malone. His sharp features were illuminated briefly as he barked orders at his crew. "They're here," Sam whispered to himself. Malone and his men approached the cabin, their movements deliberate. One of them carried a crowbar, while another had a baseball bat slung over his shoulder. Sam watched as they pried open the front door and disappeared inside. "Now," he muttered, signaling to the dogs. As the men searched the empty cabin, Sam moved quietly toward the yard. Buddy and Shadow flanked him, their movements silent and precise. Hope stayed close, her body low to the ground as she followed his lead. When the intruders realized the cabin was empty, their frustration spilled over. Malone's voice carried through the night. "Find him, and bring me that damn dog." Sam stepped into the open, his rifle raised. "Looking for me?" he called out, his voice steady. The men spun around, their flashlights blinding in the darkness. Well, Malone sneered, taking a step forward. "You've got guts. I'll give you that." "I've got more than guts," Sam replied, his gaze unwavering. The confrontation had begun, but Sam knew this was just the first move in a dangerous game. With the dogs by his side and the deputies nearby, he was prepared to do whatever it took to protect his family. The battle for their safety and Hope's future was about to reach its peak. Malone smirked, his hands casually resting on his belt as his men spread out, encircling Sam. The beam of a flashlight caught the glint of the rifle in Sam's hands, but he stood firm, the dogs flanking him like a pack ready to defend their own. "You think you're some kind of hero?" Malone taunted, taking another step forward. "That dog belongs to me. Hand her over, and maybe I'll let you walk away." "She doesn't belong to anyone," Sam shot back. "She's free, and you're not taking her, or any of them, back." Malone's smile faded, replaced by a sneer. "Your funeral." He nodded toward one of his men, who began advancing with the crowbar. Sam fired a warning shot into the air, the crack of the rifle echoing through the yard. "That's close enough." The man hesitated, glancing back at Malone. The standoff held for a moment longer before a distant shout broke the tension. "Police, drop your weapons." Flashing lights lit up the edges of the property as Daniels and his deputies emerged from the shadows. Weapons drawn, Malone's men scattered. some retreating toward the SUVs, while others attempted to find cover. "Go, boys!" Sam shouted to Buddy and Shadow. The two dogs surged forward, barking furiously as they cornered one of the fleeing men near the cabin. Hope stayed close to Sam, her body trembling but her gaze fixed on Malone, who was now backing toward his vehicle. "You're not going anywhere," Sam yelled, raising his rifle. Malone pulled a handgun from his jacket, pointing it directly at Sam. Before either of them could act, Hope lunged. She closed the distance in a heartbeat, her powerful bark startling Malone enough to throw off his aim. The gun discharged, the bullet striking harmlessly into the dirt as Hope sank her teeth into his arm. Malone screamed, dropping the weapon as he stumbled backward. Hope released him and stood her ground, growling fiercely. Daniels reached the scene moments later, his gun trained on Malone. "On the ground. Now!" he barked. Malone, clutching his bleeding arm, glared at Hope before collapsing to his knees. Daniels cuffed him while two deputies rounded up the rest of the crew. Sam lowered his rifle, his hands shaking as the adrenaline began to wear off. "Good girl," he murmured, kneeling beside Hope. He ran his hands over her fur, checking for injuries. Hope licked his face, her tail wagging faintly, despite the chaos. Her eyes shone with pride. "You saved me," Sam said softly. "You saved all of us." With Malone and his men in custody, the property finally fell silent. Deputies began loading the captured men into patrol cars while others secured the weapons and evidence left behind. Daniels approached Sam, his expression a mix of exhaustion and relief. "You all right?" Sam nodded, glancing down at Hope. "Thanks to her." Daniels crouched to pat Hope's head. "She's a fighter, that's for sure. You've got a special one there." "Yeah," Sam agreed, his voice thick with emotion. "She's one of a kind." As the sun began to rise, Sam stood on the porch, watching as the deputies cleared the scene. Buddy and Shadow rested nearby, their heads on their paws, while Hope sat proudly by Sam's side. "You did good, girl," Sam said, scratching behind her ears. "Better than I could have ever hoped for." Hope leaned into his touch, her eyes soft but alert as she scanned the yard. For the first time, she seemed completely at ease, her fear replaced with a quiet confidence. The danger had passed, but Sam knew their journey wasn't over. Hope had proven herself to be more than a survivor. She was a hero, and together, they would continue to face whatever challenges came their way. The battle for her freedom had been won, but a new chapter in their lives was just beginning. The morning after the raid, the cabin felt unusually quiet. The adrenaline that had fueled Sam through the night had faded, leaving an exhaustion that settled deep in his bones. Buddy and Shadow lay near the fireplace, their bodies relaxed but their ears twitching at the faintest sound. Hope, however, seemed different. She stood by the window, her head held high as she looked out at the clearing where the SUVs had been parked hours earlier. Her posture, once timid and uncertain, now radiated confidence. "You did good," Sam said softly, walking over to her. "Better than I ever could have asked for." Hope turned to him, her tail wagging slowly. She stepped closer, pressing her head against his hand. For Sam, it was a moment of quiet pride and gratitude. The dog he had rescued was no longer a frightened survivor. She was a hero. Later that day, Sheriff Daniels returned to the cabin to debrief. He brought news that Malone and his crew were being processed, with enough evidence to ensure they wouldn't escape justice. "We've got them this time," Daniels said, sipping the coffee Sam had offered him. "But it wouldn't have happened without you or Hope." Sam nodded, his gaze drifting to where Hope lay on the porch, her eyes half closed but her ears alert. "She saved us out there. Took more courage than I've ever seen." Daniels chuckled. "She's got a good teacher." Sam shook his head. "She's taught me more than I've taught her." In the days that followed, Sam focused on rebuilding. He repaired the broken windows, cleared the yard of debris, and re-established the sense of peace he and the dogs had worked so hard to create. Hope adapted quickly to the changes. She moved through the cabin with an ease that hadn't been there before, her tail wagging more often and her bark steady and strong when strangers approached. Sam noticed how Buddy and Shadow followed her lead, treating her not as a newcomer but as an equal. "She's the boss now," Sam joked one evening, watching as Hope took the prime spot by the fire. One afternoon, Sarah, the animal rescue worker, arrived at the cabin with an envelope in hand. She smiled warmly as Sam greeted her on the porch. "I wanted to bring you this," she said, handing him the envelope. Inside were photos of the dogs rescued during the raid. Each one was now in a shelter or foster home, their expressions lighter and more hopeful than they had been the night they were found. "Look at them," Sarah said, pointing to one photo of a small pit bull. "That one didn't trust anyone at first, but now, she's thriving." Sam smiled, his chest swelling with pride. "That's good to hear." Sarah hesitated for a moment before continuing. "There's something else." A national animal rights organization heard about Hope's role in the raid. They want her to be the face of their new campaign against dogfighting. Sam frowned slightly. What would that mean for her? She'd travel to events, meet people, and help raise awareness. Sarah explained. "It's a big opportunity, but it would mean some time away from here." Sam glanced at Hope, who was watching them from the yard. Her amber eyes, once so full of fear, now gleamed with quiet strength. "I'll think about it," Sam said finally. As Sarah drove away, Sam sat on the porch, the envelope of photos in his lap. He looked out at Hope, Buddy, and Shadow playing in the yard, his mind turning over the possibilities. Hope had already done so much. Could she do even more? And was he ready to let her take that next step? The decision weighed heavily on him. But one thing was clear: whatever came next, they would face it together. The idea of Hope becoming a symbol for change stirred something deep within Sam. On one hand, he was immensely proud of her courage and the impact she could have on the world. On the other, the thought of letting her go, even temporarily, felt impossible. That evening, as the dogs rested by the fire, Sam sat at the kitchen table, turning Sarah's words over in his mind. "What do you think, girl?" he asked aloud. Looking at Hope, she lifted her head, her ears twitching at the sound of his voice. Buddy barked softly as if offering his opinion, and Shadow thumped his tail against the floor. Sam chuckled. "Not much help, are you?" He leaned back in his chair, staring at the ceiling. "You've already changed my life," he murmured. "Maybe it's time to let you change others too." The next day, Sam decided to see how Hope would react to being in a more public setting. He loaded all 3 dogs into his truck and drove into town, stopping at a small park on the outskirts. The park was quiet, with only a few families scattered across the grassy area. Sam found a bench near the edge, giving the dogs room to explore while he watched closely. Buddy and Shadow took off immediately, sniffing every tree and bush in sight. Hope hesitated at first, sticking close to Sam's side, but eventually her curiosity got the better of her. She wandered toward a young girl who was playing with a ball. The girl froze, her eyes wide as Hope approached. "It's okay," Sam called out, rising from the bench. The girl glanced at him, then back at Hope. Slowly, she extended her hand. Hope sniffed it cautiously before wagging her tail and nudging the ball with her nose. The girl giggled, tossing the ball gently. Hope chased after it, bringing it back and dropping it at her feet. Sam watched the interaction with a mix of pride and relief. Hope wasn't just adapting, she was thriving. As the afternoon went on, more people arrived at the park. Hope's calm demeanor drew attention, and soon several children and adults were gathered around her, petting her and asking Sam questions. "Is she a rescue?" one woman asked, crouching to scratch behind Hope's ears. "She is," Sam replied. "She's been through a lot, but she's come a long way. She's amazing," the woman said. "You must be proud." "I am," Sam said, his voice soft. More than I can say. The visit to the park solidified Sam's belief that Hope had a greater purpose. Watching her interact with people, bringing smiles and joy wherever she went, made him realize that she was meant for more than just the quiet life they shared at the cabin. That evening, Sam sat with the dogs on the porch, the cool breeze carrying the scent of pine and earth. "You've got a big choice to make," he said, looking at Hope. She sat beside him, her amber eyes steady and calm. "Do you want to stay here?" he continued. "Or do you want to go out there and make a difference?" Hope tilted her head, as if considering his words. Then she pressed her nose into his hand, her tail wagging softly. Sam chuckled. "Guess that's your answer." The following day, Sam called Sarah to give her his decision. "She's ready," he said, "and so am I." Sarah's excitement was palpable. "You won't regret this, Sam. She's going to inspire so many people." They made arrangements for Hope to attend her first event, a local fundraiser for rescue dogs. Sam would accompany her, ensuring she felt safe and comfortable. As he hung up the phone, Sam felt a mix of nerves and anticipation. Hope was about to embark on a journey that would change both their lives. As the date of the fundraiser approached, Sam focused on preparing Hope for her new role. Together, they practiced commands, met with local trainers, and built her confidence in larger social settings. For Sam, the experience was bittersweet. He knew this was the right path for Hope, but he couldn't ignore the ache in his chest at the thought of sharing her with the world. Still, he reminded himself of one truth. Hope had taught him to open his heart, and now it was time to share her light with others. The day of the fundraiser arrived, bringing with it a mixture of excitement and nerves. The event was held at a local park, decorated with banners promoting animal rescue and rehabilitation. Booths lined the paths, offering information, adoption opportunities, and merchandise to support the cause. Sam parked his truck at the edge of the lot, taking a deep breath before stepping out. He opened the back door for the dogs, Buddy and Shadow hopping down with ease. Hope hesitated for a moment, her ears twitching as she took in the unfamiliar sights and sounds. "It's okay, girl," Sam said gently, attaching her leash. "We're in this together." Hope gave a tentative wag of her tail and followed him toward the event. As they entered the main area, Hope quickly became the center of attention. Her brindle coat and calm demeanor drew curious looks, and soon people were approaching Sam to ask about her story. She was rescued from a dogfighting ring, Sam explained to a small crowd. "She's been through a lot, but she's stronger than ever now." A young boy knelt in front of Hope, his eyes wide with admiration. "Is she a hero?" he asked. Sam smiled, glancing down at her. "She's my hero," he said simply. Hope, sensing the boy's gentle energy, leaned forward to lick his hand. The boy giggled, and his parents snapped a photo, thanking Sam for sharing Hope's story. Midway through the event, Sarah approached Sam with a clipboard. "It's time for Hope's introduction," she said, her excitement evident. Sam hesitated, glancing at the stage set up in the center of the park. A small crowd had gathered, waiting to hear stories about the rescue efforts. "You've got this," Sarah said, placing a reassuring hand on his shoulder. With a deep breath, Sam led Hope to the stage. The crowd quieted as they stepped up, all eyes on the pair. "This is Hope," Sam began, his voice steady despite the nerves. "She was rescued from a dogfighting ring just a few months ago. When I found her, she was scared, broken, and unsure of the world. But today, she's standing here as a symbol of what love and care can do." The audience murmured in admiration as Sam continued. "She's not just a survivor, she's a fighter. And because of her, I've learned to be a better person. She's changed my life, and I know she can change others too." As Sam spoke, Hope sat calmly by his side, her tail wagging as if she understood the attention was all for her. After the speech, the crowd erupted into applause. People lined up to meet Hope, eager to pet her and thank Sam for sharing their journey. "She's incredible," one woman said, tears in her eyes. "Thank you for giving her a second chance." "It's not just me," Sam replied. "She's the one who decided to fight. I just gave her the space to do it." Hope seemed to thrive on the attention, her confidence growing with each interaction. For Sam, seeing her shine was both heartwarming and bittersweet. As the event wound down, Sarah approached Sam with a grin. "You were a hit," she said. "I think Hope just became the face of our campaign." Sam chuckled, scratching Hope behind the ears. "She earned it." Sarah handed him a packet of information. "This is the schedule for the next few months. We'll take it slow, but we'd love for you and Hope to be part of as many events as you're comfortable with." Sam flipped through the packet, his heart swelling with pride. "We'll be there," he said, "whatever it takes." As Sam drove home that evening, he glanced at Hope in the rearview mirror. She was curled up with Buddy and Shadow, her body relaxed in a way that spoke of contentment and purpose. "You're going to change the world, girl," Sam said softly, "one step at a time." For the first time, he felt ready to share Hope with others, knowing that her story could inspire hope and healing far beyond their little cabin in the woods. In the weeks following the fundraiser, Sam and Hope became regulars at events across the county. Each appearance brought more attention to their story, drawing people from all walks of life who wanted to meet the dog who had overcome so much. Buddy and Shadow often accompanied them, providing moral support and lightening the mood with their playful antics. But it was Hope who captured hearts, her quiet strength and gentle demeanor leaving a lasting impression on everyone she met. "She's a natural," Sarah said during one event, watching as Hope calmly interacted with a group of children. "You've done an amazing job with her." Sam smiled, though he still felt a pang of disbelief at how far they'd come. "She's done most of the work," he replied. "I just gave her the chance to show what she's capable of." One particularly memorable event was held at a high school auditorium, where Sam and Hope were invited to speak to students about animal rights and compassion. Standing on the stage, Sam shared Hope's story, his voice steady and heartfelt. He talked about her rescue, the challenges they faced together, and the strength she showed in the face of fear. "Hope isn't just a dog," he said, looking out at the crowd. "She's a reminder that no matter how bad things get, there's always a chance to heal and grow. But it takes someone willing to step in and help." As he spoke, Hope sat beside him, her head held high. The students were captivated, their applause echoing through the auditorium when Sam finished. Afterward, a girl approached Sam with tears in her eyes. "I want to volunteer at a shelter," she said. "I want to help dogs like Hope." Sam nodded, his chest swelling with pride. "That's the best way to honor her story," he said. Not every moment was easy. At one event, a loudspeaker malfunctioned, emitting a sharp, sudden noise that startled Hope. She froze, her body trembling as she tried to process the overwhelming sound. Sam knelt beside her, his voice calm and steady. "It's okay, girl. I'm here." Buddy and Shadow, sensing her distress, came to her side, their presence a grounding force. Slowly, Hope relaxed, her trust in Sam and the other dogs helping her overcome the moment. Incidents like this reminded Sam that the scars of Hope's past would never fully fade, but they also reinforced his commitment to being there for her, no matter what challenges arose. As Hope's reputation grew, so did the demands on Sam. Requests for appearances poured in from organizations across the state, each eager to have Hope as part of their events. While Sam was proud of what they'd accomplished, he also worried about the toll it might take on Hope. He began to limit their appearances, focusing on events that aligned with their values and allowed Hope to rest between commitments. "She's not just a symbol," Sam explained to Sarah one day. "She's family. I won't push her beyond what she's ready for." Sarah nodded, her respect for Sam evident. "That's why she's thriving, because she knows she can trust you." One crisp autumn evening, after a particularly busy month, Sam decided it was time for a break. He loaded the dogs into the truck and drove back to the cabin, the familiar sight of the woods bringing a sense of peace. As they stepped out of the truck, Hope bounded toward the porch, her tail wagging with excitement. Buddy and Shadow followed, their playful barks echoing through the clearing. Sam watched them with a smile, the warmth of home wrapping around him like a blanket. "This is where we belong," he said softly, "and we'll always come back to it." The break was exactly what they needed. As Sam sat on the porch that night, watching the stars with Hope curled up at his feet, he felt a deep sense of gratitude. Their journey had taken them far beyond the cabin, but it was the quiet moments like these that reminded him of why they started in the first place. Hope had given him more than he ever expected, and now, together, they were giving back to the world. The quiet days at the cabin allowed Sam to reflect on how much had changed since the night he first found Buddy under the bridge. His life, once filled with solitude and unresolved pain, had become a journey of healing and purpose. Hope, now lying peacefully in the sunlit yard, was the embodiment of that transformation. Her journey from fear to strength had touched countless lives, inspiring not just Sam but entire communities to rethink how they treated animals. One afternoon, Sarah arrived with a small camera crew. They were filming a short documentary about Hope for an upcoming campaign to raise awareness about the horrors of dogfighting and the power of second chances. Sam hesitated at first, but Sarah convinced him. "People need to hear her story," she said. "She's already changed so much. Let's make sure her impact lasts forever." The filming took place over several days, capturing Hope's daily life at the cabin, her bond with Buddy and Shadow, and her work at events. Sam spoke candidly about his journey with Hope, sharing moments of vulnerability and pride. "She saved me as much as I saved her," he admitted, his voice tinged with emotion. "Every day with her reminds me that even the most broken can be whole again." The documentary, titled Hope, A Fighter's Journey, premiered online a month later, quickly went viral, reaching millions of viewers who were moved by her story. Messages poured in from around the world, from people who had been inspired to adopt rescue animals or advocate for animal rights. Hope's fame brought more attention to the issue of animal cruelty, spurring donations to shelters and stricter laws against dogfighting. One particularly touching moment came when a group of children from a nearby school wrote letters to Sam and Hope. Each letter was filled with drawings and words of gratitude, describing how Hope's story had inspired them to be kinder and more compassionate. Sam read the letters aloud one evening, his voice cracking with emotion. Hope sat beside him, her tail wagging softly as if she understood the impact she had made. "You've done something incredible, girl," Sam said, resting a hand on her head. "And you're just getting started." Inspired by the outpouring of support, Sam decided to expand his efforts. With help from Sarah and Sheriff Daniels, he began turning part of his property into a small rescue and rehabilitation center for dogs. The center, aptly named Hope's Haven, became a sanctuary for dogs who had endured abuse and neglect. Sam worked tirelessly to ensure each animal felt safe and loved, often drawing on what he had learned from his time with Hope. Buddy and Shadow took naturally to their roles as ambassadors, welcoming each new arrival with wagging tails and playful energy. Hope, however, became the heart of the operation. Her presence reassured the frightened newcomers, showing them that they too could find peace and happiness. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Sam sat on the porch watching the dogs play in the yard. Buddy and Shadow wrestled in the grass, while Hope lay nearby, her head resting on her paws. "You've built something beautiful here," Sarah said, joining him with a cup of coffee. "I didn't do it alone," Sam replied, glancing at Hope. "She showed me the way." The two sat in comfortable silence, the sounds of the forest mingling with the occasional bark or rustle of leaves. As the stars emerged, Sam felt a deep sense of contentment. He had found his purpose, and through Hope, he had created something lasting, a legacy of kindness, compassion, and second chances. Hope lifted her head, her amber eyes meeting Sam's. In that moment, he saw everything they had overcome and everything still ahead. "We've come a long way," he said softly, his hand resting on her head. "And we're just getting started." Hope wagged her tail, a quiet affirmation of the journey they would continue to share.